We're on the record.
All right, this meeting of the Education Outreach and Training Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force is now called to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Call of the roll. Member Fisher.
Here.
Bruce Wolf, absent. Chair Josh Wolf.
Present.
All stated present. There are two last-minute agenda changes.
Great. What are they?
Okay. They are item 6 and 7, item 6, file number 18034, complaint filed by Anonymous against the Department of Building Inspection for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner. Item number 7, file number 18047, complaint filed by Anonymous against the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner.
Those matters have been withdrawn by the complainant.
Right, and do we have any understanding as to why they were withdrawn?
No, we do not. We received a fax message on Friday of last week notifying us that he wished to withdraw.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 2, adoption of the minutes for the April 17, 2018 Education Outreach and Training Committee meeting.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded by me. Go ahead and, is there any public comment on the item? Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll.
Member Fisher?
Aye. It's aye, right?
Yes.
Approved. Aye.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Wolf?
Aye.
Bruce Wolf, absent. Chair Josh Wolf.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next is public comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Members of the public may address the Education Outreach and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Is there anyone who would like to participate in public comment today? Seeing none, go ahead and call the next item, please.
Item number 4, file number 17104, hearing on the status of the order of determination. Complaint filed by Kathleen Courtney and the Russian Hill Community Association against Nicholas Foster and the Planning Department. On January 16, 2018, the SOTF heard the matter and found a violation of Administrative Code Section 67.21. The SOTF referred the matter to the Education Outreach and Training Committee to review the Planning Department's procedures, policy, and training to ensure that public records are being made available to the public in a timely manner.
Great, thank you. Now, before we begin, is there anyone from the Planning Department here today?
Yes, there is.
Great, thank you. And is there anyone from the Russian Hill Community Association here today? Wonderful. Now, I would just, as a piece of context, this case was heard previously, and both our follow-up subcommittees will be hearing it. In terms of following up on the records that are actually being provided, that's going to be heard by our Compliance and Amendments Committee. What we're looking for is the breakdown of the process that prevented you from getting the records, on ensuring that in the future, all record requests will be handled appropriately and efficiently and effectively. So if we can go ahead and start with the Planning Department and give them a few minutes to catch us up on what has transpired since the original hearing, and then we'll give the original complainant a chance to respond to that and add any information that they need, and we'll have a brief discussion and possibly a motion here. I'm not entirely sure what we're looking to seek out of this.
Chair Wolf, would you like to give them 3 or 5 minutes?
Do you need 5 minutes, sir? Let's go ahead and go with 3 minutes then.
Ready?
Thank you, Chair Wolf. Committee Member Fisher.
The mic's not on.
It is
It's not on.
Oh,
Please reset the clock also.
I apologize.
Okay, Chair Wolf and Member Fisher, this is Jonas Ionin with the Planning Department. I am the department's official custodian of record. And in this particular case, to respond to your question directly, there actually was no procedural breakdown. What actually occurred in this particular case was there was an IT breakdown. The department is undergoing a transfer of all records into electronic format. We've rolled out into a vendor providing documents to members of the public as well as internally for staff called Excella and PPTS. And as a result of this complaint, though, we did determine that there was a glitch in the system which provided related records to not produce anything that had been entered and coded for property addresses. And since this complaint was filed, that error has been corrected.
Great. Any questions from?
No, I'm good.
All right. Thank you so much. And then, is there anyone here wanting to testify on behalf of the planning department? There isn't anyone, so you guys can keep standing up. You're good. And is Ms. Courtney here? Great, thank you.
You're Kathleen Courtney?
Please reset the clock.
Thank you, Chair Wolf. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. We don't exactly know what is within your purview in terms of this situation. We are aware that there were 1,300 records that were the subject of this glitch. We don't know whether or not the individuals or the cases that were involved in those 1,300 records were addressed or rectified, and I assume that that's a compliance issue. We have read Mr. Ionin's PDF and the PowerPoint description of the process for particularly categorizing and saving emails. What we are concerned about is the overall procedures in the planning department that really direct young new planners on what to do. And so we were hopeful that, in fact, maybe it was very naive, we thought that you would ask to see the procedure binders of the planning department that tell the planners how to compile information, because what we're concerned about is, yes, the process, and yes, the technical, how you save and categorize emails on the system, but more importantly is how we are training our young planners to handle this information. So one of the things we wanted to do was basically look at the manuals that require planners to post their documents on the property information map as soon as they are created, and hopefully within 10 days. We wanted to look at a comprehensive procedural manual that talks to the direction that the planners are given. And we would really like to have the director announce the procedure at the Planning Commission. So, again, we don't understand exactly what is within your purview and your capability in terms of addressing what we consider a real question about overall procedures in the planning department.
Great, thank you. Go ahead and stay there for a moment. I've got a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
And we can go ahead and stop the clock at this point. So it sounds like when talking about how records are maintained for future record requests by planners, there's potentially two issues there. There's the process of maintaining and organizing records, and then there's the recall of the records. Are you concerned about their actual record keeping process, or just how it comes back out?
Chair Wolf, I think I'm more concerned about the procedures rather than the process. What are the procedures that planners have that really give them guidance in terms of, not only how to assemble materials, but how to develop the materials? We don't know if there are any procedures in the planning department other than the PowerPoint presentation that talks about assembling specific data. And so we're really, and this, Mr. Ionin has no blame in this, and we totally appreciate the fact that there was a computer glitch. But this allows us an opportunity to perhaps help the planning department look at what are the materials that they have that provide guidance and direction to their planners.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out the best way to navigate forward through this. Have you filed a records request for those manuals in order to be able to review them?
Didn't even cross our mind. If that's the direction that you want to suggest, I'd love to.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you did have some expectation that we would have requested it and reviewed it. And
unfortunately, that was our expectation.
It certainly didn't cross my mind, and I can't speak for my colleague, but our body isn't necessarily well equipped to go on that kind of a fact-finding mission necessarily. So I think that, you're more than welcome to request that information, and if something comes of that, that needs to be explored through this venue, I'm certainly open to reopening the entry and walking through that. I guess the initial question, and it may be premature to ask the planning department, is whether or not they believe those documents would be protected by any means or not, because that's sort of the first step of that. But before I ask that question, let me see if my colleague has any questions for you, and then we'll move forward.
No, I don't have any questions.
Great. If the planning department could please step forward. Thank you so much.
Would you like to ask for any speakers in support at this time?
Sure.
Or would you like to wait for public comment? It's your...
Let's go ahead and finish this, then ask for speakers in support, and then public comment.
Okay.
If the planning department could please approach. So it sounds like the complainant is looking to review the actual record-keeping procedures, the manuals that dictate how this material is collected and then made available for future records requests. Are those sorts of do you see any complications in turning over those training materials through a records request should the complainant follow up with?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there are no manuals or procedure manuals available to planners to turn over to Ms. Courtney.
So how are the processes immortalized and maintained?
Unfortunately, because of the nuances associated with the new system that we're currently operating under, things are changing at such a fast pace that when procedures are attempted to be written, they are oftentimes changed by the time they're issued. So essentially, I perform a verbal training for all new staff, and then the separate divisions will train their staff. Fortunately, the primary responsibility for uploading the information to the electronic format to become available to the public is done by clerical staff, where there's not a whole lot of turnover rate.
So a lot of this is sort of getting on the edge of what our field as the Sunshine Task Force covers, but how are you ensuring and maintaining knowledge that everyone is following the same procedures? I understand that you're essentially verbally training people, but it sounds like this is a somewhat complicated computer program, and I know that when I teach my mom how to use some new program on her computer, and then I come back 6 months later, she's figured out some other way that doesn't quite work the same way and has different results. How are you maintaining supervision to understand that the procedures are the same across the entire department?
Through monitoring by their supervisors.
All right.
And ensuring that the information is the correct substantive materials that we're looking for case materials. For most things, they're just certain categories of information that we're looking for, and as long as they're there, then we see that to be a complete file.
Great. Thank you. So it sounds like there isn't any real documentation relating to what the complainant was hoping to review. So I think
Not that I'm aware of, not yet. Certainly when everything gets fleshed out and the dust sort of settles with the new programming and the most recent procedures, I'm certain the A procedure manual will be created. But like I said, based on, just the way technology moves today, it seems as every time one is drafted, it's out of date.
All right. So last question then. Are there outdated manuals for previous workflows that still exist?
There may be very old hard copies. I remember when I was a young planner, there was an attempt at creating a procedures manual binder that was about that thick, not necessarily specific to record keeping, but processing of our work that may be lingering. But I don't believe it touched on record requests.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
All right. Wonderful. And at this time, I'll ask whether there's anyone looking to speak on behalf of the complainant. Recognize that by choosing to speak now, you're declining to participate in the public comment, which will be almost immediately following. Seeing none. Are we looking to come up with a motion here, or?
It's a matter of, do you believe that the planning department has complied with the order from the SOTF, which was to review the planning department's procedures, policies, and training to ensure that public records are being made available to the public in a timely manner. And I believe it's been mentioned that there is no written procedures or policy regarding training. And if you are comfortable that with that statement, I believe you can find they've complied with this portion of the order of determination and conclude it, while the Compliance and Amendments Committee will hear the matter on a future date regarding their portion of the order of determination.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm not comfortable with the fact that these training manuals don't exist. It sounds like there is a plan to create them as soon as it's possible to do so, which is encouraging. And I'm not sure it's entirely within our jurisdiction to particularly comment on the need for them. So I'm inclined to go ahead and make a motion that the Planning Department has complied with this portion of the order of determination, pending the follow-up with our sister committee on the other portions of that order. Is there a second?
Second.
Any public comment on that motion? This would be a last opportunity for the public to speak about this issue, short of attending the next committee meeting for compliance and amendments. Seeing none, clerk, go ahead and call the roll.
Member Fisher.
Aye.
Chair Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Ayes have
All
it.
right. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 5, file number 18022, complaint filed by Kevin Williams against the Bayview Opera House and the Arts Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 12L.5 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and/or complete manner. Sorry.
All right. Go ahead and give each side 3 minutes. Is that?
It's at your discretion, but since this is the first time this has been heard, it's your choice to make.
So this is a new complaint?
This is a new complaint. This is a 12L complaint and not a
12L.
sunshine complaint.
Yeah, we've had Mr. Williams here before.
Yes,
What was
we've
that
heard
for?
the complaint against the Arts Commission, but this is not against the Arts Commission. This is to review the complaint filed against the Bayview Opera House, the Arts Commission reviewed that complaint and they issued a letter. The purpose of the task force is to review that letter and to provide an opinion if they so desire. However, we are not making any findings regarding compliance. All we can do is issue an opinion letter. I have provided that language to 12L for your review.
Yeah, we were at 12L.
Now, is this committee the one that would submit that opinion letter, or
No,
we would
this will still
refer
go
it
to
to the full task force who would decide whether to
Yes.
submit? Given that this is sort of a pre-hearing process, and really I think that the questions are what's central to getting to the core of what needs to be presented to the full task force, I think 3 minutes is sufficient, so go ahead and give 3 minutes to both sides, and then we'll give you time to answer any questions in order to be sure that everyone has a chance to get heard.
Very good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I appreciate your time, members. If you will recall, March 7th, the task force voted 9-0 to find the Arts Commission culpable for delays in submission or responding to public information requests. And during the course of the deliberations by the task force leading up to that decision, it was recommended by several members, including member Bruce Wolf, that some of the areas where the inquiry centered, particularly around the amount of money that was spent on the historic renovation, given that the Arts Commission said they didn't have information or documents responsive to the request, that 12L reasonably applied, and that I should make the resubmit the request under 12L. There seemed to be general consensus that I could get more of a flushing out of a response to the documents by applying that rather than 67-1. So in that regard, after having received the finding from the full task force, a written finding from Chair Wolf on March 27th, I initiated the request first to the Bayview Opera House. Procedurally, that is the step which would allow the Arts Commission then to provide some recommendations, and that is a prerequisite to appearing before the task force committee and ultimately the full task force again. So that is essentially where we're at now procedurally. What I received, in my opinion, is still non-responsive to some of the substantive issues that have heretofore been discussed, need not be discussed over again in this forum. But nonetheless, what's happening in terms of the disclosure, when I asked the Arts Commission about the balance of $3.1 million, they say, we don't know. When I asked the Bayview Opera House what happened to $3.1 million, they say, we don't know, we can't tell you. When I ask about certain events that have taken place there, I'll cut it short.
You got 30 seconds.
Okay, it's the same thing. They had a players' ball. If you don't know what a players' ball is, it's for pimps who did a car show to show how much success they've had with prostitutes. They had an event there in the building, and I asked, well, who were the assignees? This is a public building according to 12L or 67. It's still a public building. So how is it that you could have an event like this without any disclosure? So that's just one example among others, and I'll stop right there to allow the other side to speak if you have some questions.
Great, thank you so much.
All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Kate Patterson. I'm with the San Francisco Arts Commission. So I don't really need to reiterate every point in our letter, but we did review all of Mr. Williams' requests. And again, some of his requests fall outside of the scope of 12L. However, for those that fall within the scope of 12L, we found that the Bayview Opera House had complied with those requests. Additionally, after sort of in-depth scrutiny at 12L, we had some recommendations which we made to the Bayview Opera House with regard to how they conduct their public meetings, all of which are described in the letter we provided. And, again, we can only make recommendations, and it's incumbent upon the Bayview Opera House to see those through. And Barbara Ockel, who's the executive director of the Bayview Opera House, is here today in the event that you have specific questions related to their practices. But they, for the most part, agreed with all of our recommendations and have taken steps to implement some of those recommendations. Most notably in their agenda for their most recent public board meeting, which provided more specific detail about their public comment portion of their meeting and the ability of the public to nominate board members, et cetera. So those are all discussed in the letter, so I don't need to go into that. I mean, I think, again, the issue is Mr. Williams continues to ask for records that fall outside the scope of 12L and is frustrated that he's not getting the answers that he wants, understandably. But for some of his requests, the Bayview Opera House nor the Arts Commission has the information. And so as we recommended previously, he should consult with the other city departments on which the Arts Commission partnered on the construction project of the Bayview Opera House for further detail, specifically with regard to budgets and expenditures for the large-scale construction project. If you have any questions, again, it's all in the letter, but I'll leave it at that.
Great. If you can just stay there for one quick second. So you submitted some recommendations to the Bayview Opera House to come more in compliance. That was done through a letter to the Bayview Opera House?
We went through all of Mr. Williams's questions and we conferred with them to verify what their practices were. In some cases, we provided records to Mr. Williams that backed up, whatever those practices were. Like, one of them had to do with making the agendas public. So we got the records from the library that indicated that those agendas had been submitted. And then we shared our letter with the Bayview Opera House so that they were apprised of the recommendations that we were making.
Got it. And then did the Bayview Opera House reply in writing to you?
No, I don't believe that they were asked to or required to. But I have received a follow-up email from the executive director with some of the things they have implemented since this letter was issued.
So you have I'm sorry.
They were
I asked
not
if they responded in writing, and then you said no, but I have an email from
they
them,
were not
so
instructed to respond in writing.
But you have an email from them that addresses your letter, so that's essentially
Well, it just addresses some of the recommendations and the things that they've adopted. Yes.
Have you provided this email that addresses what they've adopted to the original complainant at this point in time?
No, I haven't.
And in order for him to get a copy, he would need to file another public records request?
Well, I'm happy to share it with him. I have a copy right here.
Great. Wonderful. So if you can share that with him, that'll be great.
And may I ask that a copy provided to
Sure.
the task force? Thank you.
Sure.
That's all the questions I have at this point.
I think, it was never explicit that they had to respond.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
It's just that, he's trying to piece together the facts,
Sure.
and any additional clue is, potentially valuable to him.
Yeah, I guess my question is for Victor and Cheryl. What are we supposed to do with this?
The committee is here to make sure that all the information is present so that the task force can review the information provided to I'm making a little bit of this up as I go along. As
we
the
all
task
are.
force is only allowed to provide an opinion on the response letter.
Okay.
That's
On
all the task
response
force
letter.
can do.
Okay.
There is still some dispute, but I don't believe that's under our jurisdiction regarding the actual response, as 12L is very limiting in what the Opera House is required to provide, and that is generally limited to financial information.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, we've had a few 12Ls in the past,
Yes.
I was
And
subjected
there
to
are-
one once.
You know, it looks like there's additional information being requested, but I don't believe that this
That's
12L
not-
will address that issue, as we can only comment on the letter provided by the Arts Commission.
And anything else requested doesn't come under sunshine jurisdiction.
No, not to,
Yeah.
as it is a nonprofit organization.
So that's pretty much going to be our opinion, would be my guess.
Well,
Mr. Chairwolf.
I'm sorry, could the executive director from the Bayview Opera House come here for a second? Or approach the...
Miss
That'll be Miss
Okel?
Barbara Okel.
Okel.
Hello, task force members.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us. I don't actually have any questions for you at this point in time, but part of it is that, and I'm not sure whether your presence was directly requested or through the Arts Commission, but I'm very glad you're here. At this point, we are just putting forward, it's sort of a middle ground process before it goes before the full task force to weigh in on the letter and put forward an opinion. And I'm just curious whether you think you'll be able to attend the follow-up meeting with the full task force, so that if any of my colleagues have a question before the actual process moves forward, they can ask you directly instead of counting on me to predict what questions they might have.
So I'm not sure what the date of that is. I'd have to check my calendar, but in principle, yes.
Great, wonderful.
We will be sure to add Ms. Okel to the notice of hearing and contact her before we will do what we can to be sure that she is well informed.
That sounds great, and whatever you can do, Victor, to proactively schedule it with a date that she'll be there, so that we can, I don't know what's possible that way, but to whatever extent it's possible, make sure that she's able to attend the meeting with the full task force. It would be greatly appreciated.
If you don't mind leaving us your contact information,
Okay, I'll
we
do
would
that.
Appreciate it.
Okay, sure.
Great. Any questions from Member Fisher?
I don't have
Great.
anything.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Any remaining questions?
Just what do we do from here? Do we just make a
I
motion?
believe we
or
would
just
need
let
to
it go?
find that we have jurisdiction in the manner that we have jurisdiction to review this Arts Commission letter, and then forward to the full task force for hearing.
So then I could make a motion that we review this to the full task force for a hearing.
That we have jurisdiction and
That we have jurisdiction. I would make a motion that we have jurisdiction and forward this to the full task force for review.
Yes.
Yes?
So I'm inclined to second that, but I'm not going to at this point. We can hear rebuttals.
Yes, it's your discretion.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear rebuttals
Oh, yeah.
to make sure that all the pieces that need to come together for the full task force are in place, and then I'd love to have you reintroduce your motion.
Well, I was just putting it out there for after the rebuttals. So
Wonderful. We can do it that way too.
That'll be 3 minutes on rebuttals. I believe that Ms. Patterson would be the first. Do you have? Ms. Patterson waives rebuttal. So, Mr. Williams.
I can't keep getting up and sitting down. Somebody help me up. Thank you. I appreciate it, members. I think the motion is very appropriate by Member Fisher for the following reasons. I think the end game is disclosure. That is, from the beginning, some almost 10 months now, is what we're trying to get down to, is the documents. And thus far, there's been, in my opinion, based on the information that has been provided to me, evasion. The owner of the building is the Arts Commission. They should know what money is spent on a historic renovation of taxpayer dollars of $3.1 million, of a total of 5.6. On the other hand, the Arts Commission, the Bayview Opera House, the recipients of the funds and who ostensibly handles the management and the day-to-day operation. I mean, it just sounds ludicrous that neither party, the Arts Commission tells me to go to some other department when they are the beneficiaries of the funding. And I'll just say parenthetically, with my name being Williams, the theater is named after my mother. And I can't get information that an ordinary citizen of San Francisco and taxpayer, which I am a homeowner and taxpayer, cannot receive. So I'm only asking information that any ordinary taxpayer who does not have a personal interest in their namesake on a building that is named after a woman who saved the building, and they refuse to give it to me. It's just adversarial. These letters being withheld from me all this time paints a continuous picture of an adversarial relationship. I'm not looking for that, but they are compelling something that is unnecessary for us to engage in this kind of diatribe and evasion. They're having public meetings in a private meetings in a public building involving the Warriors. They didn't tell the community about that. They're holding meetings with human traffickers. I think every tax-paying citizen that is against a misuse of city funds, misuse of a city building for private use when they're receiving $500,000 a year, up to $700,000 a year over the last 4 or 5 years. Disclosure is at the end of the day what we're looking for, and they're not producing it. They're not allowing people to come into their board meetings. That's one of their recommendations, and say, can we sit on the board? They're making recommendations after they've been receiving funding under Ms. Okel's direction since 2009. So it's been a long period of time before the change, and the change has come. Thank you. I'd appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right. Are you ready to make that motion now?
I already made it. So
You
I
said a
believe the
second ago
motion
you
is
were...
to find jurisdiction and to refer to the full task force for hearing. I believe we can take public comment at this time.
Any public comment? Oh, wait. I should second that, and then we'll take public comment.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Ready?
So my name is Francisco da Costa, and I've appeared before you here before. And I don't think so when we fought to create this Sunshine Task Force, we had all these convoluted machinations and ploys just to see like how a party that has been completely faulted and also reminded that it's faulted by the district attorney, still continues to not abide by plain decency. Forget the rules and regulations, plain decency. The Bayview Opera House, and I've known that place for the last 40 years, was never what has been displayed today and before you. Never. At one time when they didn't have chairs, they didn't have tables, I provided them with the chairs and the tables. We did whatever we could. The community knows them as a nonprofit organization. The community doesn't have an inkling about 12C. 12C mandates that when you have a public meeting, that you have the notices posted to the library and so on and so forth. It's never done. The Bayview Opera House today is being used like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. What they call economic development. Previous directors have made about $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year. Here we have a director making thousands. And not performing, not disclosing with the Arts Commission, who is the landlord, participating in fraud. So far, they have not gone to the IRS. We are going to go to the IRS. And then I hope you'll have a special meeting to find out about what is the decision of the IRS. The Arts Commission, in this case, is to be faulted. And we don't want the lies that have been told here. The lies that have been told here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll.
Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. Motion passes.
Great. Motion passes. Next item, please.
We've already noted that 6 and 7 has been withdrawn. Next on the agenda will be item 8.
Item 8, announcements, comments, questions, future agenda items, and pending calendar by members of the Education Outreach and Training Committee.
I don't have any announcements at this point in time. Do any of my colleagues?
No.
No. Anything from the clerk? Nothing. All right. I think that's resolves that item. Next item, please.
Next item is number 9, that's adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Aye. So moved.
So moved. All right, we're adjourned.
Stop the recording. The square is the stop button.